Hello! Welcome to this evening's discussion with Roundhouse Theater in cooperation with the Chinese Youth Club and the 1882 Foundation. Tonight, I'll be joined by several representatives from the past and present of CYC to discuss basketball in our local Asian community, inspired by Roundhouse's current production of Lauren Yee's The Great Leap, directed by Jen Chang. Great Leap is now running both in person and streaming on demand via our website. This show is made possible by generous support from our show sponsors, Linda Rabden and Don Shapiro. I am Associate Artist Nason Mojgani, and I'll be your facilitator and host for this discussion. Before we bring on our guests, I want to acknowledge that our theater, administrative offices, where I'm currently sitting, education center, and production shop are all located on the unceded land of the Piscataway peoples. Roundhouse acknowledges the Piscataway as the original caretakers of this land. We pay our respects to the Piscataway community and their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. We also acknowledge that as the world experiences the COVID-19 pandemic, many of us, including everybody participating in this event today, are using the internet and other technologies that are not as readily available or accessible in present-day Indigenous communities. In our ongoing efforts to learn more and strengthen our relationships with members of our local community and to work towards dismantling the harmful effects of white supremacy and colonization, we pledge to do the work necessary to build relationships with sovereign tribal nations to ensure that Roundhouse becomes a more inclusive space and to never cease ongoing learning. I encourage you to check our website, roundhousetheater.org, for informational links to learn more about the Piscataway tribe, as well as how you can support organizations working to protect Indigenous rights nationally and globally. And now, let's introduce our panelists and get this conversation started. We're going to start by bringing out Jack and Harry Lee. Come on down. Hey there. How are y'all doing today?
Good evening. We're doing fine.
Wonderful. I want to kick it to you, Jack, and start just by introduce yourself briefly to those watching at home.
Okay, hi. So my name is Jack. I was born and raised in DC, Chinatown. So I've lived most of my life in DC. I'm a current resident in Maryland at the moment. I got to see the play The Great Leap, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think that probably led to some of this conversation about, how Asian Americans are represented.
Thank you. And Harry?
Hi, I'm Jack's brother. So ditto for growing up in DC's Chinatown, born, raised, went to school, public schools all in DC. My involvement with basketball is very simple. I just love the game. I love the way it flows. I love the strategy. I love the athleticism of the players. And I've been following CYC basketball for over 55 years. So I have a little bit of history, a little bit of knowledge, but little skills.
That's actually a great place to start. If you want, Harry, so you said you've been following CYC basketball for 55 years. Can you talk a little bit about sort of how you got started actually with participating in CYC?
Well, participating with CYC was very easy because my dad, our father, was involved with the club, but he wasn't involved that much with the sports element of it. We actually got involved with basketball because we had a church gym, Calvary Baptist Church, that allow us to use the gym after school hours and on Wednesdays from 6 to 9, where the crescendo of athletes started coming into DC's Chinatown to play basketball among the residents of Chinatown and their extended friends in the suburbs. And I was a no good player. No defense, no dribbling. Maybe I could shoot only if open, but because I sat on the bench during my early years of all these teams, I got to observe and understand the nuances of the game, how it should be played, how a really skilled player should have certain attributes. And from there, I just stuck with it throughout the CYC volleyball, CYC line dance, and then, of course, CYC basketball.
Great. And Jack, actually, I sort of think I feel we maybe skipped something actually now that I think about it. For those who are not so familiar with CYC, could you actually tell us a little bit about, specifically, I think, the basketball program, but in general, sort of what CYC is doing, particularly for those early days?
Well, CYC exists only because of really the exclusion laws and the makings of a Chinatown, right? Because that's where the Chinese residents had to go. And so back in 1939, a group of elders got together and chartered the club in 1939. And so the first program, I think correctly, was the volleyball program. But then during the war effort to raise money, they actually went to New York City and borrowed a lion head and started a lion dance program. And the proceeds went there. And then after the war, the volleyball continued, but there was a small contingent of groups of basketball players, about 1950, 51 that I know of. And they went to Philadelphia to play in the tournament. And that's the first I know of CYC basketball. Sam Wang, one of our elders, who's still around, was one of the first players back then. I think Jasmine might have a picture of that team.
Yeah, he's one of the pictures.
I think it's the one with the.
He's got a basketball uniform. There he is.
So Sam was one of our elders that actually participated in everything, but definitely in basketball and later on more in volleyball. So, but this I know is around the early 50s.
Yeah.
So then I don't know that much about after that because I was just a kid. I didn't start playing basketball probably till I reached junior high school. And between the older group, like Harry, right? He's 3 years older than me. So as he was in junior high, I was in elementary. But by the time I got to junior high, because of the way the system is, he was in high school. By the time I got to high school, he was already gone into college. And so, I really didn't get a lot of the benefit of their knowledge and their skills until I started going to the church that he mentioned at Calvary. Wednesday night was, you knew where everyone was going to be Wednesday night. All the guys were there Wednesday night. And so in junior high school, I was awful. I was just awful. I remember in 7th grade, I was sitting down before school started, and some guy points at me and says, "You want to play?" So I get up, and I remember, I think we were shooting for sides, and I took a shot. I hit nothing but air. It was like embarrassing, I just didn't know. So from then on in junior high, I started trying to play. The problem with Chinatown is there's no basketball courts. That it was just all residential or business area. I think the closest basketball court might have been Thompson Elementary School on 12th Street, but I didn't go there. It really wasn't until some of the older guys like my brother and Alan, would drive us places or we'd go places. Sometimes we would walk back down to Jefferson Junior High, where we went to junior high school. And then we would try to play more, and I tried to learn more, and I try to get better and better. But it's still difficult because in 9th grade, I thought, okay, I'm good enough, right? I'm going to try out for the junior high team. So I'm getting up in layup lines. We're doing the layup lines. And I go in there and I do this floater that I think is really cool. Whistle blows. The coach or the gym teacher says, "Stop." He said, he had me redo what I was doing. He says, he turns to the rest of the guys and says, "That is not what I want you to do. That is not how you shoot a layup or the shot," And I was just so embarrassed, Needless to say, I was cut. And, that's the story, But, back then, there weren't a lot of AAU. There wasn't boys club even in our neighborhood that taught it, right? I mean, except for Calvary, that Wednesday night, that was the only place that I had to learn, and
Nissan,
it was awful.
Back then we didn't have YouTube.
That's true.
But to add to what Jack just said, we actually fixed a little smaller basket behind my house, our parents' house in Chinatown, against a brick wall. And it will draw 10, 12, 14, 15 players on a rim that's not quite 10 feet, with no extension to go do a layup because you couldn't go against the wall to lay it up. So they kind of taught us that floater he's talking about. And another interesting point is Jack talked about how we used to get in the car and look for empty rims. Well, Al Wong used to drive us around a number of times all through the summers of 67, 68, 66. And we would go to Georgetown Playground, Hearst Playground, Lafayette Playground, all the playgrounds in the northwest sector of town, looking for a good straight rim to shoot. And that was what we did with our free time back then.
Once it became an obsession, we started playing. But in the early days, really, when I started playing with the older guys, I call them, it was really softball. We were in the parking lot playing softball, and then during the winter football. Basketball really didn't come on. I don't know. Maybe Harry, you remember when basketball became more popular?
When I was a sophomore, junior, and the reason I knew it was because I went out to be the basketball manager of the varsity team at Western High School, and I kept badgering the coach, Coach Daves at the time. Says, "I want to be your manager because I want to sit on the bench and watch the games." Well, he didn't pick me for the junior year, but the senior year he did, and so I observed a lot of great players, a couple good all Mets at the time, and after that I was hooked.
Mm-hmm. And so, as you talk about driving around looking for these opportunities to play or playing behind your house, in terms of formal organized play, were there? I think I'm curious about the sort of the need for CYC as a formal program. Was there? Were you able to play?
Yeah, it actually started developing because there were two other Asian or Chinese basketball teams at the time. One was KO, which eventually their players morphed into part of CYC, and the other was the Maryland Chinese Club, which had their own intramural all Asian basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
And we would do local tournaments, and local to us is basically New York and Philadelphia, and we would go as teams until the MCC, the Maryland Chinese Club team, started merging with CYC. So, and that was like the 68, 69 year.
Mm-hmm. And so you were really only playing against other Asian American, other Chinatown teams. Is that correct?
In an organized fashion, yes. We do random pickup games, but
mm-hmm.
we weren't tall enough, to be honest.
Yeah. So how'd you do in those random pickup games against other folks?
Yeah, but we were scrappy defenders.
There you go. Yeah.
I think the main thing is, when we went to these playgrounds for pickup games, we always had one guy who would be willing to say, okay, we're next, right? But once we were able to get on the court, we actually would surprise a lot of people. And actually, we end up winning a lot, in the gym. And to me, it was always funny to watch the other people. They start yelling at each other, saying, you go check him. Why can't you get him?
You can't check that little guy?
Yeah. And so we would do that all the time. And that was, I think, part of, at least for me, the way of earning respect, right? I mean, because when you first walk in, no one's going to think a bunch of 5 Chinese guys can play. And I think Alan was the tallest, and Alan was maybe 5'9", 5'10", maybe. I don't know.
Alan was very good basketball player. In fact, the guy we also want to get on was Wallace Lee. He played for Gonzaga junior varsity, but in his freshman year, he tried out for the University of Maryland freshman team, and he made it to the last cut.
Mm.
He was the best player in CYC for years, and he was a lefty. And if you ever get access to some of these old CYC basketball booklets, and I'm going to just show you one because I have 5 of them. A lot of it was based on Wally's abilities, and I kept these as souvenirs because I'm kind of an anal sometimes on this stuff. But it has good articles, it has player profiles, player descriptions, team ratings, and stuff that you see today in USA Today. This is the stuff I wrote way back in 70, 71 because I had fun doing it.
Yeah.
And, when you start knowing the players' names and their skills, their height, their weight, and stuff like that, you start becoming a real, true believer and follower of basketball. So I wish I had made that's a picture of Wally shooting, and that's at the University of Pennsylvania Palestra gym. And he looks like he's playing against the Philadelphia team. No, Baltimore team. That's Wallace Lee, who we try to get on.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. He had a previous engagement. But see, so for me, right, I'm like I say, I always consider myself that we would call the little guys in our terms, right? So for me, my goal now was to make it to a high school team, and I kept trying. As Harry mentioned, we would go to Georgetown Playground because that was very close. We'd spend probably all weekend there if we could, playing against other competition, and I met some really nice guys who were willing to kind of like not mentor me, but would give me hints, right, and just keep playing. And so, because I thought, wow, if I could ever be an all Met, I'd be the man, right? I could be like everything, that was never going to happen. But that's what like these kids think I'm going to make it to the NBA, So I was lucky enough in my senior year to make it onto Western's varsity team. I mean, I think part of it was I had a very nice coach. I think he looked at diversity, but I was the only non-black in the whole league, so I guess that was diversity to them. And to me, it was a very good learning experience because, I got harassed every gym I went to. I had long hair. I was kind of like a hippie. I had long hair. I played against some of the best players at that time. And I wish I was a little bit more mature. I just wasn't mature enough to absorb it all and become. But to me, this is at Wilson High School, by the way. I was just, to me, this was, way of growing up in our community, right? And, I think that through athletics a lot, you gain some respect once people get to know how you play.
Yeah, I'd like to actually pick up on that thread that for each of you, thinking about that time especially, but also to some degree, I think your continued life with CYC. What would you say that you gained out of that experience? How did you grow? How did you develop? What was the benefit of that experience for you?
For me, it's very simple. It's organization. It's getting things in order, understanding the importance of being on time, scheduling practices, doing the things that, in my case, the non-starters had to do because the starters were busy playing. And I took that into later years when I actually coached the CYC 18s teams for about 4 or 5 years. And we had good competitive teams. They were very organized. I think if you ever saw some of the pictures, every year they got a new T-shirt, which was very important to them. And they just, that's one of our teams. There's a couple more with different colored T-shirts. Every tournament, I try to get them a different T-shirt, and they like that. That's the sense of belonging.
Right. And don't forget, you guys won a championship. I think it's this picture, right?
Yeah, we beat the Rockets.
Yes. So, and this was a national tournament. I mean, not the national, but a pre-national tournament.
Yeah. That's a team from New York. I'm on the bottom left with the Fitbit. And the CYC guys are basically it's my son and 5 or 6 of his friends.
But that's all part of it, right? It's part of the family that CYC has. A lot of these, we play. Our sons play. If I have grandchildren, I'm sure they're going to play. Our father was part of the club. I think that's a very integral part of the Chinatown community and CYC.
Yeah, that's his legacy.
Yeah, when you talk to Tui, you can find out he's got his cousins playing the 3rd generation of Chin family and how they get involved with CYC sports all the way through.
Fantastic. I think that let's bring our next guest out, Alan. It'd be lovely for you to. So we've got Alan Wang joining us as well now.
Hello.
Hello, Alan. Are you? Can hear you, but the.
I'm still in the car.
Again, please drive safe. Are you driving right now?
I'm actually pulled over now.
Okay, at least you're not slow.
Yeah, so I've been associated with CYC since the beginning too, with Harry. Jack's being modest. He had a very awkward shot, but it was very accurate. And actually, Jack played for me. I coached Jack for a couple of years.
Yes.
So I've been playing and coaching for about 50 years. Jack and Harry's older brother, Benny, was my age, and we went to Western together. And he actually is the one that introduced me to basketball and started bringing me down to Calvary to play. So I've known Harry and Jack and their older brother Billy for since '64 or so, I guess. Yeah. So I've known them for a long time, and they've been really good friends. And like you said, that's one of the great things about the CYC and CYC, not just basketball, but the guys we played with. I'd say the bulk of them are still alive, and we still get together, a few times a year. So what Harry said is correct. the Calvary Baptist Church was really the start of where all the competitive players started playing. And back then it was KO and MCC, and KO really was the best club. But the funny thing about KO was it was a Chinese American youth club, and a lot of us didn't play for KO because the starters were all Filipino. So it was one of those situations where at the time, they were older than us, but they were the better players, and the guys just didn't want to sit behind them. So we either played for MCC or Baltimore. Toward the end of toward the end of the 60s, we all were at Maryland, and then we started playing together, and we played in the Salvation Army League, and we started playing as CYC. Actually, one of our greatest victories was in the Maryland Intramurals. We played the Black Student Union. They were undefeated for like 4 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jack says, we walk into to the gym to play them. They saw us. They were all laughing, and we beat them. It was our only loss in 4 years.
Do you remember the score?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing because they have guys that are like 6'8". Our tallest guy was like me, 5'10".
Yeah.
And,
Wally's taller than that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but yeah, Wally was a little taller. Wally's about 6, I guess. But yeah, we beat him. Regretfully, that was one of our few wins. Happening, we had a really good night.
Yeah.
But we played in the Salvation Army League, and one of the guys from the KO team continued to play with us. His name was Yulo Regala, and we kept him because he was what, I don't know, Harry, 6'3".
6'3" and 225.
Yes. So we kept him on the team because, it's basketball and it's nice to have a big guy.
Absolutely.
So in 72, CYC, so KO was throwing tournaments in DC for several years. In 72, we took over the KO banner and we threw the first CYC tournament in DC. And that team, there was an A and a B team, and those teams probably played together for the next, I don't know, 15 years or so, to the mid to late 70s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we always had a get together on Sundays, an open gym. So yeah, it was great because all the guys, a lot of the guys stayed in the area and we just played together.
And so, Alan, you took, I believe, first the volleyball team to China and to Taiwan. So could you talk a little about that, how those trips, those international games came to be?
Sure. So like Harry said, the older sponsors, their main sport was volleyball. So in 1972, we won the National Volleyball Championship. And as a reward to us, they planned this trip because the tournament in 74 was in San Francisco. In San Francisco. And then they planned to they took us to Taiwan for a 2-week tour in Taiwan. Mm-hmm. When we went to Taiwan, they actually asked us, do you want to play basketball too? And we said yes. The sad part of the trip was in the middle of our basketball team, one of the sponsors had a massive heart attack and passed, and they canceled the trip, the rest of the tour. So we did not finish. We finished the trip to see Taiwan and Hong Kong, but we did not play anymore.
Right.
So when I came back from Taiwan, I was approached by On Liang. On Liang is one of the Chinese business associations. So On Liang wanted to get into youth sports. They were having a lot of trouble in the Chinatowns, and they decided the way to calm things down was to have these youth basketball tournaments. They were going to pay for everything. They were going to sponsor it, and the winner would get to go back to Taiwan to play. So they asked me to set up a team for DC.
Yeah.
So but it was for younger kids. They didn't want the older guys playing. So they put a cutoff age on it so that the older team was not allowed to play. Jack actually was young enough and he got to play. While it lasted, it was great because the major cities was Washington, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, and Chicago were the 5 main cities. And then we usually had 3 other outside cities that played. So there was usually an 8-city tournament. We played in that until 1980. in 1980, On Leung came to us and said, "That's it. We don't have any more money. We're not sponsoring you guys anymore." So the 5 main cities, we got together, and Gene Lee from Chicago said, "Let's start a national basketball tournament for Chinese." And we agreed to do it. And Gene actually took the lead. And that was the start of the North American Chinese Basketball Invitational Tournament. And that's even running to this day.
Mhm.
So we were playing, we played in that for, I had this younger team, which had my brother-in-law and that age kids and Jack. And we played in that until it ended. And then we started going to the nationals. And then in 86, I was approached to take a team to China. So I don't know. Have you ever heard of the Taiwan Love Boat trips?
Yep.
All right. So China was trying to do the same thing. They wanted to bring American-born Chinese to China to see the country and see, their homeland, sort of, right?
Mhm.
So I was approached to bring a team over. The deal was the same thing as the Love Boat trips. We would have to pay our airfare to Hong Kong. Once we got to Hong Kong, the government paid for our room, board, and transportation in China. So we went for a 2-week tour. We played 5 games in 4 cities: Beijing, Shanghai. I forgot, there was one of the inner cities, and then Guangzhou, Canton, and then we went back out in Hong Kong.
And those games, were you playing was it exhibition games amongst yourselves, or were you playing Chinese teams?
No. We were playing Chinese teams. So we were playing colleges. So they were very interesting the way they did it. So our very first game, we played the ex-Olympic team. So they were older gentlemen, but they were all on their Olympic team. So in China, you can remember, right? Because the ex-athletes, when they were finished, they housed, it was a privilege to be in that level athlete. So they housed them, and they lived on those Olympic villages for the rest of their life. And all they did was play basketball. They didn't have to do anything. They never had to work again. So that's why there was an incentive for those guys to make the national teams. But yeah, so our first game was against the ex-national team. And then based on how we did, they picked teams to either beat us or let us win. So they were very accommodating. So we went to Shanghai. We played a college in Shanghai, and we walked into the gym. They had 3 guys about 6'6". They were they were dunking the ball and stuff. And we're going like, holy smokes. And they must have killed us by 30 points. But then the next city we went to, we played a small college, and they said it was a business college, and there was nobody over 5'8", and we crushed them. So they, like I said, they were very we ended up 3-2. They let us win 3, and we lost 2.
Great.
And but we had a great time, and it was a great trip.
I'm curious, the sort of, I guess maybe thinking about those teams that you played, stylistically, did they feel like they approached the sport differently? Was there, I'm thinking about sort of your team coming from the States and theirs, any real differences to think of?
Stylistic, they were more disciplined. So you have to remember, the team I took back was an all-star team from the East Coast. So I had players from DC, Philadelphia, New York, and Boston. So while we played against each other 7 times, we never played together. So really, for the trip, we met a week before the trip to go over some stuff, and we went over, and then we went to China and played. So yes, we were against the better teams. Yeah, we just weren't organized enough yet, because we just didn't play enough together.
Right, whereas they were a unit.
Yes. So, and then in '88, I was approached again to bring a team over. But by that time, I had a family. I had 3 kids. My wife said, "You can't go." Harry knows my wife, and Jack too. Anyway, she said, "How are you going to leave me here with 3 kids?" And I said, "All right." But I set the trip up. And again, several players from DC went. And several players from the East Coast. And actually, for that trip, I was able to get a hold of 2 kids from twins from San Francisco, and they went with the team. So one of those pictures, you'll see our big guy is it's Wally's nephew. Actually, his mother's Chinese, father's the Caucasian, but Tom James was probably 6'7" and 250.
The 250s on, yeah, right.
Yeah, he was really a giant. So
Yeah,
so
he's
he
in
went
one of
on
the
that
pictures.
trip, and then when they got back from that trip, the team broke up. All the guys were pretty much out of college, started working, and they just didn't have the time to get together and play anymore. So really, there was actually a gap, I'd say, from 1988 to 1995. So in 1995, I put together a young team for nationals, and that was with my son and my nephews, Robbie and Robbie's brothers. Actually, Patrick's older brother played with it on that team, and Benny Moy's son played one of the players that played with us. His sons were on the team, and that was their first national. So that was in '95, and my son and the Lee brothers, they really been the core of the CYC team from '95 until their last national. I don't know, it was the mid 2015 or so.
They've been playing 40 and up.
Well, they've been playing 40 and over, but I mean, competitively, they probably stopped playing around 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but those four were the core of the team for those 15 years or so, 20 years almost.
Yeah.
So, but in
honest,
1999, and you do have a picture of that, it's the girls' team. So in 1999, the Nationals, we got together and they said, let's put together a women's division.
Mm-hmm.
So they got enough teams to agree. We only had like 6 teams, but they held the first women's national, and CYC DC won it.
That's great.
Yes, so that was fun.
Yeah.
The only CYC team to ever win a national.
but we came in second 3 times.
I came second 4 times.
4 times?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
always
better than
close. Always close. Never the big cigar though. But yes. Yes, they played together for several years, and some of the older girls, like my daughters, quit playing, but the team kept playing for years. Right. And I still think, did they play 2 years ago or something? Didn't Rob and them all played?
I don't think they played in Chicago.
Okay. So so I don't, it's going to tell you, I've been coaching for probably close to 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I did AAU, and for the last 25 years, I've been coaching high school. I do girls varsity, and my oldest granddaughter just last night played her first varsity game at the high school. She made varsity as a freshman.
That's very exciting.
Yes. So I took off to go. I skipped my high school game to go watch her play. I told my daughter I have to go. It's her first game.
Yeah. How'd she do?
She did fine. She was a little nervous, but yeah, she's a point guard. She's 5'6". She's solid dribbler, nice shot. So she did fine, and she's on one of the top teams in the city.
Yeah.
So she's going to have I think she's going to do fine there, and she's going to have a reasonable career there.
Good.
So it was fun to watch her play.
So we've referenced Rob and Patrick several times. So I think we can go ahead and bring our last guests of the evening out and join us. Rob and Patrick, want to come on out?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank y'all. Want to introduce yourselves real quick? Rob, you want to go first?
Yeah, hi. My name's Robert Lee, or Rob Lee, whatever. Robbie. They usually call me Robbie, but yeah, I'm actually the president of the CYC, or Chinese Youth Club, currently. My background is kind of Alan's my uncle. I've known, actually, Alan's my uncle. Jack and Harry are basically my uncles too. We grew up, and as I grow up, I see them every week at least at volleyball or something like that. And now my job after not playing or stopping to play, is to start helping the next group of young CYC people come up. So that's kind of where I stand now.
And Tui, Patrick?
Hi, yeah. Loosely related to everybody here. My parents grew up in Chinatown with everybody. Everyone's here. Everyone here is an uncle to me as well. I grew up playing basketball, actually for Allen, and played AAU basketball and high school basketball growing up, and played with CYC my whole life as well. And now, I help Robbie out with coaching and mentoring the basketball kids.
Yeah. And Tui's still at that age that he's still playing. So, we kind of let the players play, and the older guys usually are the ones that help out. Like Harry said, when you're not playing, you're doing something else. Because, CYC is really a big community. It takes everybody to kind of keep this thing going.
Yeah, that's actually the first question. But I guess first I will say to those watching, we're going to save a few minutes at the end for any questions that y'all might have. So if you've got any questions, you can go ahead and type it into the comments section. We'll pull those up later. But first question I actually had for the two of you was, thinking about that idea of sense of community. I'm curious, sort of, why, talking to Jack, Harry, and Alan, that in the earlier days, there really weren't. It seems like there really weren't other opportunities available to players in Chinatown. And so I'm curious now why your current players. What's the benefit of playing, CYC versus playing on their high school team or any other league rather than specifically the CYC?
Well, I can tell you when I'm sure too as well. When we first grew up, we used to go to Calvary as well when we were probably like 9 years old, 8 years old, running around Wednesday nights watching Jack, Harry, and Alan play. And they're being very modest in the gym. They're kind of more PC, but there was a lot of arguing, and it's kind of where you get your kind of who's tough, who's gonna carry the dream, and one of those. And that's kind of what was instilled in myself as well. Is everyone does play basketball, but there's only an elite amount of guys that actually really play basketball. And like Jack used to say, same thing is, when you go. When you take that group of 5 guys off the court and you go play in a pickup game somewhere, everyone's like, wow, how can they be that good? What's going on? And they start yelling at each other. And that is the fun part of being Asian and being able to play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the sense of community is a big thing right now. It's just a place to let the youth, like Jack and Harry said, some kids love basketball, but just can't physically play or just aren't as good to make a high school team. So CYC provides a place to kind of get them better or get them a kind of a sense of community. Like, hey, you can still play here, even though you can't play at a high school level. But not to say that we do have a lot of people that played high school. Like my 2 brothers played at the Matha. Tui actually played at St. John's. Alan's son played at Bullis, and Jack didn't even say his son played at Kennedy High School for basketball as well. So we do have a lot of pedigree for basketball in the DC area.
Yeah.
Tui, I believe he won an AAU championship when he was younger with the DC Blue Devils or the Maryland Blue Devils, I believe, Tui.
Yeah, DC Blue Devils.
Yeah. So, the thing is, what we try to portray is, yes, there are avenues for certain players that aren't as good, but then we also try to strive for the players that are better to give them an avenue to try to get better as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Chinese tournaments do help because we don't really try to turn people away. We want to, if they want, like Harry, if they have a love for basketball, it will come out, and in the end, it will show. So that's our theory for kind of keeping these kids together to keep playing.
Yeah.
It's a place to hone your skills for people that are playing in high school or playing on other levels. It's a place to maybe do some things that you normally can't do, try some things out, right? And for the kids that are, aren't fortunate enough to be able to play on different teams, right? It's your opportunity to play. You get so much from it. The sense of community means so much. It's a proving ground too, right? I mean, you might play in high school, you might do things outside of CYC, but if we have an open gym, right, all that gets thrown out the window. It's all about what you can do against the other guys that you grew up with. There's a lot of bravado, and Yeah, it's a very strong sense of community. You always want to show what you can do, and people are always when you play together against other people. I mean, you're playing for each other. You're playing for your community, and you really want to show what Chinese basketball players can do.
And that's why those tournaments that Alan was talking about, the national Chinese basketball tournaments, that sense of community really comes out then, because there's only one or two teams from the area. Like this is DC, there's two teams from New York, there may be two teams from Boston, team from San Francisco, a couple teams from Chicago. But when you go play in those tournaments, that's really when the sense of pride comes out for DC, because you're really playing for your city at that point. And you kind of it's a bit, I don't know how to explain it, but it is a big deal within the Chinese community, which is kind of what we're looking at now.
Yeah. How do we do? How does DC do when we go to these tournaments?
Like Alan and Harry say, it's hard that we never win, but we're always somehow second place.
There you go.
Yeah. Always. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like in '72, I was reminded that not only did we win volleyball, we won basketball, but I think it was a much smaller scale tournament now. So the tournaments that Tui and Robbie and that group playing, I mean, I don't know how many teams are, but and the competition is just phenomenal now. Right? I mean, very athletic Chinese or Asian American guys playing.
Yeah. We have a lot of the guys, like I didn't even mention, like Tui, he played in college as well. So it's like the level of competition in the Chinese community when you go play other cities, I would say 3/4 of guys probably play college somewhere nowadays at the top level, so it's a really has grown. I mean, my uncle, Alan, my Uncle Tom, he always would tell me, when we used to play against guys that wore black socks, meaning, they're not really basketball players, but we beat up on them. Now it's changed where everyone is really, really good throughout the whole country, and I hate to sprinkle this, but if you look at a couple teams in college, you'll see some Chinese or Asian guys playing on those teams now. So Asians are starting to kind of maybe put their stamp or a little getting their foot in the door.
For sure.
I don't think we can talk about like Alan and Jack's contributions to all this enough, right? I mean, Jack mentioned it earlier when they were playing. It was about showing or proving it to themselves that they could play against people from other races. And by the time we came around, because we got to watch them playing, because we had people before us, it was just about we knew we could do it. It was just about proving it to other people. Yeah. Right. But because we had them in front of us, because they opened those doors initially, and because people like Alan were coaching those teams that we were on, right? We had the opportunity to and the confidence to really excel when we could. And that makes such a big difference. We were able to stand on their shoulders, right? And we were able to know that we belonged. And know that we could, know that we could play with anybody else because we saw them do it.
That's beautiful, right? That clear sense of legacy. No, that's great. I'm curious, in the last 2-ish years, how is your programming? What are you doing during the pandemic? I suppose are you playing? Do you have basketball and volleyball programming right now?
As of now, it's sad we have not been doing anything for the past 2 years with COVID. We used to have a gym once a week, kind of the same tradition as older guys going to Calvary, and in that gym, like Tui said, it was, in my opinion, it was probably one of the better gyms, even though it was mostly Asian in the area. We've actually had like Bradley Beal's brothers come out. We've had a couple of John Wall's friends show up to the gym. So it was a really high level gym.
Yeah.
That now, from COVID, we haven't really been able to do much with basketball because of, gyms and COVID. But we are starting up, back up playing games or putting teams together. We have a 4th grade team and a 8th grade team now that we're starting to coach. I think my brother's coaching the 4th grade team. And actually, Alan is coaching the 8th grade team. So he's back into coaching young kids again. So
but I'll be coaching with Tui's father. Tui's father's another one of our guys that we've been together for 50 or 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I agreed to do it. I talked to him. He said, "All right, he'll help." So we're gonna do. So it's my grandson, Robbie's son,
and Mr.
so
Chin's
Tui's
grandsons.
nephews, and there's some other kids too. But yes, we agreed to do it, and so we're gonna see what these guys know.
Yeah, Alan's going to be coaching for another 20 years with these guys now.
This makes me wonder. I asked Jack and Harry. I asked you sort of what you got out of your experience playing in your youth, but I think for all of you, whether it's as coaches or as Rob, in your case, leading the organization, what do you get out of this continued? What do you continue to get from this experience?
It's a lot of basically gratification. It's good to see the youth kind of be able to take initiative. Like Tui was saying, because of what Jack, Harry, and Alan have presented or have done in the past, there's like a blueprint already of what to follow. If you stay with the course, you really love the game, you want to play, you can get there. And my perspective now is I take a step back and I'm watching the Tuis and all these other younger guys come up, and it's fun. Like I try to go to all the volleyball tournaments now. I don't play anymore, but it's fun to watch them, and it's that same still sense of community, because when we go to these tournaments, it's still CYC in DC. I mean, it's almost ingrained. It's like, when they hear, oh, we're matched up with CYC, you kind of get this thing in the room. Oh, we got to play them. Like it feels good. It does feel good.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing I'd like to say, because Tui and Robbie aren't saying this, but really they played or are part of, against the toughest league in the DC area, the WCAC. Alan and, Tui's dad coach in the WCAC. I mean, they're not just coaching at some level, they're coaching and playing at a high level. The inner high is nothing now compared to these private school leagues. And they've taken it easily by storm and elevated everyone in the club by it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were able to use examples like Alan and Jack and Harry, after all these years continuing to give back. It sets a really good example. And so they're because we see what they do, the examples that they give us, right? It's important for us to give back when we can as well.
Yeah.
Here Alan's it's been 50 years, right? How could you say no if you're asked to help out, or how could you not jump at an opportunity to give back as well, right? This has given so much to us. It's given us so many opportunities. It's opened so many doors, right? Given us so many experiences. The least we can do is try to help some other kid get that same feeling, or that same experience.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We've got one question from the comments, and so if anybody else has questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. So we've got this one. For those who went or took teams to China or Taiwan, did those trips change your perceptions of and your relationships to those countries? So I guess, Alan, this is mostly for you. Did you think back, did that change your relationship to China and Taiwan?
So Taiwan was the really tough one because, like I said, we played one volleyball game in Kaohsiung. We went to the middle of Taiwan to play one basketball game, and regretfully, the tour ended there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yes, it did change my view, because actually at the time, and even when we went in '86 to China, it was sort of amazing how poor these people were. So when we went to China, we had a tour guide, and who our interpreter, two of them. And they traveled with us the entire trip. So at the end of the trip, we got together. He was riding this old raggedy bike, little 3-speed thing to work. And so we got together and we said, let's buy him a bike. So we went around, we went to a couple of shops. The bikes were $30. We had 12 players, so we all chipped in, $10 a piece, and we gave them each a buck. And they were crying because a bike to them is like if someone was to come here and we give them a car.
Yeah.
So it was amazing that we went there, and the countries were really poor. this was 86. So it's, of course, it's a lot different now, but there were some funny things that happened to us. We went to Forbidden City. So on the entrance to Forbidden City, it's these famous stone statues of animals. So the guys, there's signs on the bottom of the animals, and we're going there and we're taking pictures, standing on it and stuff. And then one of the guys asks our interpreter, "What's the sign say?" And he says, "It says do not sit on forbidden not sit on the animals, historic animals." And we're like, so they all jumped off. And he said, "Why didn't you tell us?" And he said, "Oh, it's okay. Just do anything you want."
Lucky you got out of the country.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was a sort of eye-opening for us because we were used to the States, and our first dinner, we finished eating, and the guys were looking at me and going like, "We're still hungry," and I had to go back to the interpreter and said, "They're still hungry," and they just sort of looked at us like, "Why? We just gave you a full meal." And I said, "Yes, it's not enough."
Mm-hmm.
They're not used to eating the small amount, and they had to bring out more food, but it was good because after that they knew we ate a lot and they adjusted. But yes, it's sort of they had it for them. It was a luxury banquet. For us, it was like, wow, is this it? We need more food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yes, it was. I think it was a good trip for everybody because it was just the people that were in 86 were really poor. I can't remember what they told me the average salary was, but I think it was $1,000.
Sure. Yeah. Well, wonderful. On that note, I want to thank all 5 of you for joining us tonight, as well as anybody watching at home. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a lovely evening. We hope you enjoyed it as well as I have. So as I said at the beginning, Great Leap is running for a little longer, both in person and virtually. And Rob, I'm going to kick it to you for just a moment. If folks are interested in learning more about CYC's programming, what should they do?
Oh, very easy. Hopefully everyone has a Facebook page. We just go to Chinese Youth Club at Facebook. Look us up on Facebook is the easiest way to get a hold of us. Message there, and someone will get back to you. Again, I know we only talked about basketball, but we also do volleyball, traditional Chinese lion dancing, and basketball. And, there's a lot of other community stuff we do. So anyone and everyone can reach out to us, not just Chinese, Asian, and we are open for everybody to come, join us.
And I also want to thank 1882 Foundation as well for helping to organize tonight's conversation as well. So thank you all so very much. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.